Over the last couple months here on the channel, I've told you all that we are in what is called an HMZ within the world of crypto. Now, an HMZ is a high manipulation zone, and I've told you all that this HMZ is going to be a place in which most people who make big moves are going to lose. Big buys, big sells, big leverage will almost always cause you to lose. Over the last 6 to 7 years, I have seen several HMZs, and they are getting worse and worse, and they're becoming even more violent as time is going on. And I've told you all that this is not a game that you want to play. Well, over the last 48 to 72 hours, we've really started to get even more signs and signals that this HMZ is still in full effect, and I don't think you should be doing anything whatsoever until a certain few things start to happen. And so in today's video, what we're first and foremost going to do is quickly touch on the fact that we did get PPI data earlier because it is important, but I really want to focus in on the fact that we got some very blatantly obvious signs that we are still in an HMZ. We're in a high manipulation zone, and if you do anything big right now, you're probably going to lose. And so look, we got a good bit to unpack today, so let's not waste any more time at all, and let's get straight into the video. So quickly looking at the crypto market, what we can see is that we're actually not having a terrible hour or day. I mean, not the best, not the worst, somewhere in the middle. Some things on the week are looking good, some things on the day are looking bad, just kind of an unbalanced, weird day or two. Now, the reason why we are starting to see some things looking good and some things looking bad is because we are getting past, of course, CPI and PPI data reports. What we can see here is that earlier today, we did get the producer price index release saying that, of course, seasonally adjusted PPI came in at 0.4% on the month when expectations thought it would be 0.3%. Now, what this means is, of course, that people expected that the producer price index, or simply the growth in prices for producers, it came in a little bit worse than expected. But the reason why the market's not really reacting that poorly to it is because yesterday we got CPI data, which also came in pretty rough. And so we've already seen a lot of the nerves, a lot of the adrenaline kind of shaken out in the market already, and no one really cares about PPI data that much. I do think that it is important because this, of course, this does still paint a picture to me that the Fed is likely going to continue to delay interest rates cuts and quantitative easing, likely forcing some sort of altcoin season to be later in the year. But overall, I think, again, a lot of people don't really care about PPI data as much, which is, of course, why I didn't make a full video dedicated to it, because we talked about all this stuff yesterday. So if you want to kind of know how, what's going on with inflation and the economy, make sure you check out yesterday's video to get my updated thoughts there. But one thing that I did want to mention while we are on the topic of CPI and PPI is something that I made in a tweet, or that I said in a tweet a couple of days ago. I said, look, let's go here. I said the next 48 hours are going to be very interesting. CPI and PPI data will very likely be the disguise that the lizard people use to cover their liquidity hunts. Not a bad time to deleverage and prioritize risk management. Strap in. Now, a couple of days ago, what I was saying was that, listen, although what we are seeing in the economy is incredibly important, and it is going to lay the foundation of what is going to happen in crypto over the next coming months, you need to look at the bigger picture. If CPI would have came in good, if it would have came in bad, I genuinely don't think that in the short term it would have mattered. Because where we are right now, kind of now getting back to what I was talking about in the beginning of the video, is in an HMZ. Now, an HMZ can be visually represented by that red box that I've showed you all a million times over the last few months. And an HMZ is a zone in which people are going to lose, and they're going to lose consistently no matter what side that they're on. And as you could see, again, a couple of days ago, I was telling you, you need to be very careful right now, because no matter what we see from CPI and PPI, I think that they're going to use this as a disguise to do their liquidity hunts. And now fast forward 2 days later, what do you see? If we head over to the 1 hour charts, you can see exactly what I mean. We had this little period in which, of course, we got CPI and PPI data. And what happens? We get CPI data that comes in worse than expected, PPI data that comes in worse than expected, both of which are two bad things you don't want to see. But look what happens. We get these huge wicks to the downside, but in general, we get these moves up and down and up and down and up and down and up. Right? And you can start to see how just over the last 24 hours, there's been a ton of volatility. I mean, look at how this is looking from more of a macro perspective. Look at this, right? Like, if we just kind of zoom in on that, look at this volatility here, right? And this is what I'm telling you all about. I saw a lot of you who are trying to play that card. You said, well, I think that CPI and PPI data is going to come in a little bit worse than expected, quite simply because you thought that the Biden administration was fluffing the numbers up, and since they're not in office anymore, these first ones would come in worse than expected, which was a good guess because, well, they did come in worse than expected. But in response to that thought process, what you did is you shorted the market, expecting that we were, of course, going to see crypto prices going down. Well, that's not particularly what we saw. We saw CPI data release and the market dumped, and then it immediately recovered to the upside. And as it started to recover, we of course started to see things doing good right before we saw the market absolutely tank on its head right here because of course manipulation doing manipulative things. Then it recovers all the way up, and then people start getting confident that now it's going to go up since it had this huge wick. And then what does it do? Well, it eats the wick and falls absolutely quickly over the course of just 4 hours all the way back down towards those lower levels. Do you see how no matter whether you were right or whether you were wrong, if you had high leverage throughout this, you lost? This is exactly what I'm talking about. And the manipulation that we're seeing in this market is becoming even clearer. Vincent Van, look, let's show you. At Vincent_Van Code made a tweet earlier that I thought was fantastic. And shout out to Connor Kinney who brought this to my attention. But he said, market manipulation on Binance at its finest. This is the 1-minute chart for XRP and BTC. And if we go here, you can kind of see what he's talking about. He said they both dump exactly at the same time in massive volumes, the exact same time. These are not whales or institutions sitting there in a chat session going 1, 2, 3, go dump now. These are sophisticated bots that operate across multiple tokens with a war chest of hundreds of millions of dollars. Wouldn't surprise me if it was Binance themselves doing this. I mean, who is watching them? No one. No one reviews trades, cross-matching its order books and users. Retail and anyone trying to trade this to make a profit short term is either gambling or using bots themselves. This is insane. No wonder why everyone gets wrecked. You buy, it dumps. You sell, it pumps. The only way to participate, in my opinion, and win is to hold on for dear life. Just don't sell until you make large profits over time. Not financial advice. And you can see how this played out. 8.5 million in volume here, 864,000 in volume there. I mean, or 864 million in volume there. It's just ridiculous. Like, it's becoming so blatantly, glaringly obvious that we are participating in an HMZ or a high manipulation zone, a completely manipulated market, that it's almost bewildering that people are still trying to play the game because the game is built against them. And quite frankly, I don't think this is going to stop until one specific thing happens. People stop playing the game. History has shown me that the only time we've gotten out of other HMZs, and we've seen them before, we saw an HMZ just last year. It wasn't as bad in terms of manipulation, but it was there. And the only way that we get out of these ranges is quite simply when people give up. When people stop going in on massive amounts of leverage, that is the only time where the market manipulation is not worth it anymore. These institutions will not stop manipulating the market until they don't have a reason to. And once they don't have a reason to, then I believe that they'll allow this market to continue in whatever direction they want it to, quite frankly. And the way in which you're going to be able to identify whether or not this manipulation is happening is quite simply just look. Manipulation relies on liquidations. These institutions make more money the more people who get liquidated, because the liquidated money flows from the exchanges all the way up into the pockets of these lizard people. And until we can see people not getting liquidated at mass, they will not stop manipulating this market. I mean, quite frankly, if you look at liquidation history, the green bars are the amount of people who are getting liquidated to the top side, or long traders getting liquidated, so it happens when it falls. And these red traders are short traders who are getting liquidated when the market pumps. What you can see here is that since the end of 2021, we have seen more cumulative liquidations in this market than we have in the entire history of cryptocurrency. This means that the people who are manipulating the market right now are making more money than they ever have before. Why would they stop it? Why would they stop doing this? I mean, answer that for me. Why would they stop? They have no reason to. When you can have a day like February 2nd, when you see all of these liquidations like this, or a day like January 26th, or a day like January 19th, why would they stop? Quite frankly, why would they stop? They have no reason to. And I'm under the belief that until we stop seeing these liquidations at mass, there's no reason to do anything big. There's no reason to make big purchases, big sells, huge leverage trades. It doesn't make sense because you're literally just gambling at that point. You go look at the liquidation map and you look at the 30-day and you can see it. You can see it here. If the crypto market pumps to $108,000, over $11.7 billion will be liquidated. Now, some people will close their trades before it gets there, but there will be billions of dollars in liquidations. If the crypto market, and I'm talking about Bitcoin specifically here, but if Bitcoin's price goes all the way down to $84,000, there will be $4 billion liquidated. If Bitcoin's price goes to $93,000, over $1.4 billion will be liquidated. Look at the sheer amount of people who are opening these long trades. It's absolutely insane. The amount of people who are getting greedy, who are getting impatient, who are just gambling and just throwing huge amounts of leverage at their trades right now are the reason why this market's doing what it's doing. They would not be able to accomplish things like this without people like this. And until we see people stop doing this, until people stop being so damn greedy and they give up and let this market play out how it's going to play out, I don't think it makes sense to do anything big. I don't think it makes sense to do anything big at all. I think small purchases, small dollar cost averages make a ton of sense on red days, but outside of that, I really wouldn't be doing much. Because quite frankly, this won't end until we see people stop being greedy. Now, the good news about this is I do think we're getting closer and closer to it ending. If we look at the Bitcoin short-term bubble risk, what you'll come to recognize is that when Bitcoin is in this green, yellow, orange, or red phase, right, in this positive phase, that is typically when the market is rallying. Whenever it's in this blue phase, light blue or dark blue, that's generally when Bitcoin specifically is correcting. And oftentimes pumps come after corrections. And what you can see here is that ever since October of 2024, we were in this green and red phase, meaning that we were super overextended. Maybe I can kind of zoom in here. You can see we were super overextended there, right? But the beautiful part about it is, very similarly to what we saw back here, is that Bitcoin is getting ever so close to getting back into this blue line. Now, we are still a ways away, and it could be, of course, a week or 2 or 3 weeks away from that, but we are getting closer and closer and closer to our blue bars. And these blue bars are generally when we are bottoming out and when we are correcting completely. That is usually the end of the corrective period. And so I do think Bitcoin is getting closer and closer and closer to the point of this being over. And you can see that represented by the fact that less people will be liquidated right now than would have been a month ago, but we are still in it. This quite clearly shows we are still in it and we're not nearly finished with the correction. And this shows that people are still greedy and they are still impatient and they are still gambling, which is going to incentivize the lizard people to continue to manipulate the market and attempt to continue to pull as much liquidations as humanly possible. That's how this is going. And so the way that I see it, quite frankly, is you, or I'll just say me, I'm not a financial advisor, but people in general, in my opinion, subjectively, should not be doing anything for the most part until this is over. Until we're out of the HMZ, until the liquidations end, until people stop being greedy, and until we see this correction finalize. And when I say anything, I mean anything big. Again, because like I mentioned, small dollar cost averages, medium dollar cost averages, totally fine. But big buys and big sells and big leverage right now, you're literally just playing with fire and you're going to burn yourself over and over and over again. So what's the point? It's obvious. It's obvious. And it's frustrating because I see so many people losing money in a time where they shouldn't. They shouldn't. There will be more time outside of this red box. There will be periods where the market does this. There will be periods where the market does this. And in those periods, it's much easier to make money. Now, listen, if you're range trading, I'm not against it, but you're well aware of the fact that you're going to get liquidated a couple times. Your stop losses are going to get hit a couple times because these whales can see where your stop losses are. They're going to force you out of these trades. They don't want you to make money in their high manipulation zone. They don't want you to, right? And so that's kind of my perspective here. And the whole purpose of this video was just to continue to bring it to your attention that these markets are manipulated, that where we are right now is dangerous. And if you're sat here just trading and trading and trading over and over and over again, losing, getting burned or selling everything to buy it back in at the bottom, all you're doing is preparing yourself for failure. Because quite simply, this market will continue in both directions, up and down, until it is finished sucking all of the energy out of retail investors that it possibly can before the doors open in either direction. So please be careful. Now, to kind of put this in a more practical approach, I can actually show you what I did over in the school yesterday. As I mentioned here on the channel in yesterday's live stream, I did actually go in and create a new beginner's portfolio for all of the beginners who are watching who don't know how to start. And I showed them exactly how I approach a situation like this. The example that I'm using, I took $10,000 to start a beginner portfolio, and I left $9,075 in cash, and I invested another $925 into some things like Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, Sui, XRP, and ADA. So do you see how I took, anywhere from 1 to 5% of my total cash and just started slowly dollar cost averaging my way in? This is how I handle a situation like this. I'm not buying $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 worth of Bitcoin right now. No, not at all. I'm slowly entering my way into the market. I'm slowly throwing a little bit of cash at it. Earlier today, for example, you can see here, I did go in and I threw another $25 at Ondo. That's a tiny amount. That's less than 1% of the total cash that I have available, but it is something. Because I'm not saying don't buy anything at all. I'm saying if you are going to be buying, it's best to be buying in small portions because quite frankly, this is a very dangerous zone. We might fall 30% out of it. We might pump 30% out of it. You never really know. And so, from again, a practical approach, this is how I'm going about it: buying things that I don't think are very risky, buying them in small amounts, and consistently dollar cost averaging my way in over time. It's the only way to truly win in a market like this, because if I start introducing leverage or big buys or big sells, all I'm doing is playing with fire, and there's no point in doing that. The people who buy crypto and hold it the longest historically win. And that's my game plan and that's my strategy. Now, I will let you know, if you do want to be able to get access to the server or access to the school, which is where you can get access to, of course, this portfolio that I'm building, my thoughts, what I'm buying, what I'm doing, and more, kind of, just general updates and stuff like that, feel free to check out the link to the school down below. It will bring you over to my Patreon, where we have over 1,233 members. And we have a very simple strategy at the school. We take crypto investors like yourselves and we give you courses, coaching, classes, live streams, workshops, signals, research, and more to help you define your strategies, because gains come from strategies, not just guessing. You will not make gains over a long period of time without a strategy. And I'm not talking about little gains, I'm talking about big gains. Today, it's 12:09 p.m. right now, and you can see that just within the last couple hours, there are hundreds of percentages, thousands of dollars worth of gains being printed in this community on good days and on bad days. It does not matter. There's been over $3 million worth of profit printed in this community. And that's not to say there aren't losses, because clearly there are losses and people do lose. But we talk about those losses, we figure out why they lost, and use that to turn it into a lesson. And so if all of this is interesting to you, again, don't forget to go check out the link down below. I did open up one executive tier just now. So if you want to check it out, feel free to do that. And don't forget as well, if you do want to get to trading today, although I'm not doing any big trading, you can check out that link to BTCC down below, in which you can get a 10% bonus on all first time deposits between $500 and $100,000, which simply means if you deposit, say, $2,000, they'll give you $200 on the spot to start trading with. And whatever profit you make from that is yours to keep. A fantastic deal, a fantastic bonus, and a way for you to make over $10,000 with all of the trading and incentives and stuff. So feel free to go check that out. Don't forget to follow me over on Twitter at TylerHillYT, where I am going to continue to talk about all these things. I did just release the TH index, kind of going over my thoughts about where the market is from a short-term, mid-term, and long-term perspective. So feel free to go check that out. And guys, please keep your head on a swivel. Right now, it's such a dangerous time in the crypto market. It's such a scary time in the market from a manipulation perspective. And people are losing at mass in which they've never lost before. So don't be one of those. Better times will be ahead. Opportunities to make money will be ahead. Don't force trades in a time like this. Don't give your money to the lizard people, because quite frankly, that's what they want, and they won't stop until you just give up, right? So the way that I see it, pull back, relax, let this play out. Let some of these more macro factors start to really give us a direction of where the market's going, and then we go from there. So, of course, I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. Bit of a weird one, bit of a different one, a little bit more, I guess, ranty from my side. So hopefully you guys did enjoy that, but please do let me know down in the comments below, and I can't wait to see you all in the next one. Peace out, everybody.